Sallallahu ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, sallallahu ala Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Those who are sitting, standing, I will request them to sit down. जो हजरात बाहर बैठे हुए हैं कुर्सियों पर, मैं उनसे अर्ज करूंगा कि वो यहाँ अंदर आकर बैठे, और जो लोग पैर फैलाकर बैठे हुए हैं, बेअदबाना तरीके से बैठे हुए हैं, मैं उनसे कहूंगा कि नहायत अदब के साथ बैठें। ये दरबार है जनाब रसूल अकरम सल्लल्लाहु तआला अलैहि वसल्लम का। It is not an ordinary meeting. You should sit with complete manners, observe manners and sit with manners. All those who are standing outside, they should come inside and sit down.
हमारी आज की ये नशिस्त गुज़िश्ता सदी के मुबल्लिग़ आज़म हज़रत शाह अब्दुल अलीम सिद्दीक़ी मीरठी रहमतुल्लाहि ताला अलैह की याद में इनेक़ाद पज़ीर है। और हमारी आज की इस नशिस्त का उन्वान लाइफ एंड थॉट ऑफ मौलाना अब्दुल अलीम सिद्दीक़ी रहमतुल्लाहि ताला अलैह है। We have Dr. Sayyid Mehboob-ul-Hasan Bukhari with us from Germany. Dr. Mehboob graduated from Al-Aleemiyah, and having graduated from Al-Aleemiyah, imitating the footsteps of Maulana Ansari, he completed his doctoral thesis in philosophy from the Department of Philosophy, University of Karachi. So I request Dr. Mehboob to unmute his mic and join us, please.
नहमदुहु व नुसल्ली व नुसल्लिमु अला रसूलिहिल करीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। इन्नद-दीन इंदल्लाहिल इस्लाम व क़ाल उदउ इला सबीली रब्बिका बिल हिक्मा वल मौइज़तिल हसना व जादिलहुम बिल्लती हिया अहसन। सदक़ल्लाहुल अज़ीम। So first of all, I would like to extend my gratitude and a wonderful recognition of the fact that we should celebrate our leaders and our heroes. So in order to celebrate these movements, or I would say history makers, I would say modern Islam makers, that our associations have produced in the 20th century. So one of them was Maulana Shah Abdul Aleem Siddiqui rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. So I think before getting into the details of his lives, of course they are very, very important, and every movement, when you get back to the life affairs, how it was passed, how he managed his traveling, his lessons, his teachings, his missionary activities, it is also very important that what are the materialities that we see around us, the effect of the presence and the signature mark of Shah Abdul Aleem Siddiqui rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. So quite often when I reflect upon the traditional lives of our scholars that we come across nowadays, some may be specialized in the Islamic, jurisprudence. Others may be specialized in some other, specializations field like Islamic history, philosophy, theology, or whatever. I'm always amazed by this one fact, that what is it that has created the personality like Dr. Fazlur Rahman al-Ansari al-Qadri? Because on the one hand, I see him as a graduate of Aligarh, and which was the bedrock of modernity, which actually is very suspicious about the orthodoxy. And Dr. Fazlur Rahman is, of course, was not as suspicious or skeptical about the orthodoxy. But what is it that links Dr. Fazlur Rahman with the orthodoxy, but without compromising modern issues of the day? That's point number one. The other thing that I think is very impressive for me is living in the colonial era. What is it that does not stop him within the confines of subcontinent and permits him to travel around the globe just for the cause of Islam, just spreading for the message of Islam? What is it that doesn't stop him? And then extracting every single thing and unifying it in the materiality of educational institutes such as Islamic Center, which is well known, Al-Aleemiyah Islamic Missionary University, or Institute of Islamic Studies, whatever you name it, because it has undergone many stages. So my biggest concern has always been this, this paradox that I see as a paradox. I don't know, but I resolve this paradox. And my resolution of this paradox lies primarily in the personality of Shah Abdul-Aleem Siddiqui rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. It is that linking thread that makes Dr. Fazlur Rahman Al-Ansari to be very, I would say, humble towards the orthodoxy, the tradition that we inherit from our, forefathers, from our scholars, from our imams. Not only that, he also contributed to transmit the spiritual tradition to and via him to the rest of the humanity. That was Shah Abdul-Aleem Siddiqui rahmatullahi ta'ala alayh. So I see him as somebody who has actually traveled across the globe, presented the message of Islam to unfamiliar cultures from ourselves, because they were mostly dominated either by Christians, and of course the Western civilization was also undergoing many changes. There was racism, there was hatred against Islam and the religion, but he did not shy away. He went across the globe. More particularly, he started with Singapore, and from Singapore to Philippines, and as we have just heard, from a man from Trinidad. That shows that living within the confines of subcontinent, making Islam as the property and the property right of the South Asians. Okay, he was not happy with that. He was also not happy with this thing that I need to reform the existing Muslims here. Yes, that is my responsibility being a scholar. But it is at the same time my responsibility is to, convince people who are somehow away from the light of Islam. So he arranged many travelings towards these countries, where he must have come across many problems, as it has been enunciated by a brother formerly. But I think the most important learning from him is what? That tradition has much to offer to us. And being in the modern times, our scholars, for example, our graduates, as well as any contemporary scholar, he can learn very much, not only from the tradition, but also from the modern times. And I feel like that it is our responsibility, because Islam is not the property of the Muslims. It is not the property of the scholars. If somebody is missing that, I think it is our moral responsibility, being human and being Muslims, that we should extend it to the others who haven't tasted yet the beauty and the taste of Islam. Because, it's very important to say, it's very easy to say that, look, if they haven't accepted Islam, so they know what Islam is. We should be content what we have right now. I think that's a way that is not the right way to move on. I think I would say that would be rather a big escape from the responsibility. I think we are living in a comfortable zone. We do not want to come out from that comfortable zone. So, learning from Shah Abdul-Aleem Siddiqui's life is that we need to come out from our comfortable zones. It is our moral responsibility that whatever has been given to us by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and on the day of Khutbah Hajjatul Wada, he given that responsibility to every single body who hears that message. So it becomes our sole responsibility to extend that message, and his entire life was full of these, I would say, practices where he shared the message of Islam, which is called the message of peace. And he has been recognized not only in Pakistan, but I was just looking at the literature. He is recognized as the sole ambassador of peace in Singapore, in Philippines, in South Africa, in Trinidad, and in many, many African countries. And I think one of the most important things that I like the most about him is that he chose Africa, which is not only ignorant about Islam, but as well as it is less privileged. Our scholars choose USA and UK for various reasons. I think it is very important to look at the African regions because they are black. They have been facing color discrimination. They are less privileged people. So Islam, if it is to be shared, it is not important that it should be shared only with the white, with the privileged people. Everybody has this right to be shared this precious teachings of that. So I think many things that present to us as learning from the life of the Shah Abdul Siddiqui, and to me is the materiality that comes from his teachings in the form of the Institute of Al-Aleemiyah, which becomes a role model for the upcoming generations. I cannot even imagine more than that once it became an ideology of the modern day, 21st century, that let's merge the religion and the contemporary social sciences together. And still, I think after 22 years or 21 years, I think all corners of the world are struggling to merge, and they are still unable to do it. In the West, many research centers have been erected on huge funding to merge and to bring closeness and coexistence of the Islamic classical sciences and the modern social sciences. All these projects have been ruined altogether, and they were unsuccessful. I do not know what was the force, and perhaps one of the force was Shah Abdul Siddiqui's spiritual, I would say, guidance, as well as his linkage with the traditional orthodoxy that made Aleemiyah Islamic Institute to be a platform where a wonderful experimentations could be done without compromising the traditional orthodoxy and without compromising the issues of the modern day. So I would rather say that I think it has been a very, very successful experimentation. I would recommend every single policymaker to reflect back upon the lives of these two leaders of the first quarter of the 20th century and the later quarter of the 20th century, and their materialities in the structures that we have found in the times of the books and the literatures and the speeches that they have left before them, and then reflect for the future that how can we rebuild our Islamic futures in the light of these two great heroes. I think that is our moral responsibility that we should look at. And I think the traditional madaris also should look at, they have always been searching for the Masihas, that there would be coming some great Masiha and he would lead these. Why are you forgetting these heroes? Why have you put them at the margins where they are less remembered, they are less celebrated? We do not see in the mainstream that they have been celebrated, they have been even named once or twice. And I think this is really a bad practice. If you pay tributes to your forefathers in terms of the scholars, don't you think that they deserve some celebrations, they deserve some commemorations, they deserve some tributes, and I think they have a very global impact. So it means that you have very biased opinion towards these leaders, which are real and true leaders, because they did not leave disciples, I would say, dogmatic disciples. For this reason, you are ignoring them, and I think it would be an unfair treatment with them. And I would categorically, let me say this thing, that this biased treatment, and I insist on these words, this biased and very limited treatment with these leaders would be remembered in history and would never forget and would never forgive the existing religious so-called leaders who do not have any global input in their religiosities. So I would end with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sayyid Mehboob-ul-Hasan Bukhari, one of the graduates of Al-Aleemiyah. He lives in Pakistan, but these days he is in Germany to complete his postdoctoral thesis of philosophy.